trying to figure out myself. Don't know what's on the road, yeah. I know that one day I'll find a way. Just think about it, oh baby, just dream about it, oh baby, oh baby.
Hello everybody, Seakeeper7 here, and I'm here to accept the challenge that was offered by one of my favorite film reviewers. That reviewer being Bob Show. For those who don't know, Bob Show is quite known for tackling on some of the most infamously bad films, like Cool Cat Saves the Kids, the Michael Bay Transformers, and the Video Bin Quiddo movies, as well as some of the more obscure bad films like The Hug-a-Bunch and El Arco. But as of lately, his most infamous reviews have been those of the Alpha and Omega franchise. This is mostly due to the fact that, despite how awful these films are, there are a few selected people who constantly nag at Bob and try to defend these movies. It even got to the point where one person by the name of WW Area claimed that Bob, along with his girlfriend Raven Fox, are cyberbullies just because they don't agree with his opinions, as well as many other convoluted issues that I'm not going to even discuss. Yeah, sounds like Daddy Derek all over again. Just a few weeks ago, Bob posted a video that stated he challenges WW Area to make his own review on Alpha and Omega, but he turned the offer down due to a fear of his other fans hating on him. But even though he backed down, many other reviewers have taken the challenge and done their own reviews on some of the Alpha and Omega films. I've decided to tackle one of these films myself, but before I begin, it might be best if I give you a quick synopsis on the first film for those who aren't familiar with the context. Alpha and Omega is a CGI animated film released in 2010 that focused on two wolves that are from two different ends of their pack, and over the course of the film they fall in love with each other. Yeah, it's pretty much your standard Romeo and Juliet story. As for the film itself, I thought it was really bland. Bland characters, bland animation, and a bland story. Nothing really that special. Yet despite receiving mixed to negative reviews, the film was somehow successful enough to spawn some sequels. Really, 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 really bad sequels. I'm here to review what many consider to be the worst of them all. That being the sixth installment of the franchise, Alpha and Omega Dino Digs. One other thing I should mention real quick before we begin the actual review. While doing some further research, I discovered that these films were written by someone named Tom Kane. I will admit, that had me really concerned. For those who don't know, Tom Kane is an actor who some animation fans like myself know for doing voice acting in a variety of cartoons. His roles included Yoda in Star Wars The Clone Wars, Professor Utonium in The Powerpuff Girls, and Monkey Fist in Kim Possible. But looking at the IMDb page, I realized that this Tom Kane is not the same Tom Kane who wrote the scripts for the Alpha and Omega films. Well, that's a relief. It would have been sad to see such a talented actor being sunk in this low being involved with these films. Anyway, enough of the tangents. Let's get into the actual review. This is Alpha and Omega Dino Digs. The movie begins at the very end of the Cretaceous period when the meteor hits the Earth, ending the reign of the dinosaurs. We then cut to the present day, where an excavating site takes place.
You're digging up sacred grounds? Spirits are buried here!
No, the so-called spirits are actually dinosaur skeletons.
Yeah, how do you mistake the bones of dinosaurs with the bones of your ancestors exactly? True, when dinosaur bones were first discovered, during the late 1700s to the early and mid-1800s, they were thought by some people to be the remains of giant humans or even dragons. But that's the thing. Back then, dinosaurs were only starting to become an interest to the scientific community, and as time went on, people learned that they weren't humans or your average reptile. This movie sets place in a more modern setting, possibly the 2010s. So the twin brothers should at least be familiar with dinosaurs, right? Anyway, the diggers eventually break through the ground where some dinosaur bones are lying, as well as something else. But we'll get to that later. Now let's see what our wolf protagonists are up to. I almost forgot we were watching Alpha and Omega movie there for a second, didn't ya? So we find Humphrey and Kate, the two main protagonists from the first film, find a new cave for them and their pups to live in with the help of another wolf, who for some reason has Edna Mode's hairstyle.
It's actually recycled material. The unnatural is the new natural.
I used to design for gods.
Well, I hear it's very safe here. We have a problem with rogue wolves in our area.
Excuse me, but if I remember correctly, in the last movie, you took your pups on a family vacation and didn't run into any rogue wolves then. This is something Kate constantly keeps hammering into the ground throughout the film, by the way.
Problem with rogue wolves, and Runt was once kidnapped by rogues and have to watch out for rogue wolves again.
You know what would have probably made this work? They actually add in a scene before all this, showing Kate, Humphrey, and the pups under attack by wolves in their old home. Therefore, actually showing us a good reason for them to move. And by the way, they hadn't dealt with rogue wolves since the second film, and since then went up against hunters, bears, and even wolf spirits. Yes, that actually happened. All of that is fine, but rogue wolves is where apparently Kate draws the line.
I knew it! Kate, this cave is made of plastic?
Wait. They build an artificial cave out of plastic?
Oh, and look at that view. Oh.
And they build a golf course? Do these writers, animators, people know anything about national parks? First of all, when zoos or other animal preserves build artificial caves, they tend to be made from steel rods, metal, fabric, and paint, not plastic. Secondly, I know Bob Show brought this up, but it bears repeating. You cannot build something like a golf course in an area that's supposed to preserve wild animals. That's like building a playground in an African savanna exhibit at a zoo, with elephants, giraffes, and zebras. You're just asking for trouble.
Look at that view. Oh, what a location. Why don't you look inside?
Yes, look at that beautiful forest and mountain scenery. How about we go inside your man-made cave? While Kate and Humphrey explore the cave, their bird friends, Patty and Marcel, arrive. For those who haven't seen the other films, these two serve as the comic relief as well as the godfathers of Kate and Humphrey's children. Let's just say they aren't good on either part. They suck at looking over the kids and at being funny. They're not the annoying kind of bad comedy, but more of the bland kind.
But you know, it's not half bad here.
18 holes, PGA design.
In fact, I love it here.
So the wolves decide to move to Wolfburbia. Yes, that's the name. And the pups are just as thrilled as their father. Yeah, Kate is pretty much the only one who's all for moving to a new location that is completely man-made.
So, I don't get it. Why are we living in this area?
Oh, hi, Jimmy Neutron. I didn't know you were in this movie.
Well, it's a very safe environment.
This island, there is no such thing as safe.
You were saying, Kate?
I'd take golf balls over rogue wolves any day.
Would rather deal with golf balls, huh? Okay. Boy, do I wish.
Look, a lake.
I smell chlorine.
Why would you put chlorine in a lake that any animal can easily take a swim in or drink out of? We then see Patty and Marcel playing golf.
Kate and Humphrey, now that you're living here, I insist on giving you golf lessons.
Maybe the whole family can learn. A fun activity together.
Why do you wolves want to play golf? How would you be able to play golf? You don't have any opposable thumbs. And here is where you see one of the many problems that this and the other Alpha and Omega sequels have. They keep having these wolves and other animal characters make human references that they should know nothing about and try to get involved with human activities that they have no reason to get involved with, period. And yet, this is something else that many diehard Alpha and Omega fans will constantly defend, saying that it is okay for these normal animals to do all these things just simply because it's an animated film for children. Unless they are anthropomorphic animals like what you would see in films or shows like Zootopia or Tailspin, there has to be some reason why or how these normal animals would know these human things. How does Remy from Ratatouille know how to cook and know a lot about what goes on in a kitchen restaurant? Because he spent enough time around humans to the point where he learns to understand them and even learns to make human gourmets. How do the rats of Nim have the intelligence to read and use human technology? Because they were part of an experiment where they were injected with some serum that made them that way. My point is that if you are going to have these wild animals make human references and do human things, give a darn reason for it! So, as their avian friends continue to golf, the pups decide to run off and explore the area. These are without a doubt the most hated part of these films. Even most die-hard fans will admit that they are the worst part. They are annoying, bland, they never seem to age throughout the entire series for some reason, and worst of all, they are horrible role models for children. I'll tell you what I mean when we get to that point. As they are exploring the forest, they notice something odd in the trees.
We just moved here and wanted to make friends with the locals. We're very accepting of all critters.
Here's Barney!
Wait!
Seriously, what's up with this creature's design? It looks like a DNA splice between Barney and the Troodon conductor from Dinosaur Train.
Watch out for my tail! Wow, we all wanted the wild and that tops it.
Cause of course they can survive an impact like that, right guys? Seriously, how could these pups live after a fall like that? I'd imagine just the impact of the dino's tail would have been enough to fatally injure them. This isn't a Looney Tune cartoon where death isn't really much of a deal and the characters can survive just about anything. When you make a film or show where death is a thing and your characters are constantly in peril, then they should not have lived through smacking into the earth like that. Meanwhile, Marcel is teaching Humphrey how to golf, but ends up upsetting a couple of caribou.
Come on, ladies, it was an accident!
Talk to the antlers!
How is it that the only thing that these animators managed to get right in this film is that caribou are the only species of deer where both the male and the females have antlers? Back with the pups, they get acquainted by the dinosaur named Amy, who explains her backstory on where she came from.
65 million years ago. My mom used to tell me if I was in trouble with predators, I was to run to the sacred space and look for a circle of light.
And apparently your mom is an Albertosaurus. Why? No, really, I'm very curious to know. How is it that this young raptor got adopted by an Albertosaurus pack? That would actually be the far more interesting story. Speaking of which, the Alpha Omega Wikia refers to Amy as a raptor. If that's the case, where are her sickle toe claws that most raptors tend to have? And also, she's pretty huge. I mean, I know some raptor species were large, like Utahraptor and Aquilobator, but I don't think even they were this big in comparison to a Tyrannosaur. Anyway, Amy runs off from her pack only to run into danger.
Something strange was happening. So we sort of survived, like my mom said we would.
Why, that's a very interesting backstory, Amy. Although, there is one teeny tiny little important detail you kind of forgotten about. How are you still alive? No, really. How have you lived underground with no light or air and nothing to eat or drink for 65 million years? The T-Rex is dead, so shouldn't you? I mean, in Atlantis the Lost Empire, they at least give an explanation on how the Atlanteans lived for thousands of years and not aged much since. Here, they just expect you to believe that this dinosaur can live that long and not even question it. I don't care what explanation you give, just give us one. Anyway, the diggers return to dig up the Rex bones.
The diggers, I gotta hide.
Wait, we'll come too.
Griffin, leave the keys in the car. I'm not in the mood for you losing our keys again.
All right, Jeffro, I'll leave him inside.
How did they not notice a 9-foot-tall dinosaur running from the dig site? So the pups decide to help Amy rid of the diggers by... You're not gonna believe this. Driving their truck away.
Are you kidding me?
Sis, you got this? Yeah, don't try this at home, right?
Hey, wait! That's our truck!
Okay, you know what? I think I may have just now figured out what the deal is with these wolf pups. Considering that they have run at incredible speeds for long periods of time, have slow growth spans, can survive falling from hundreds of feet in the air, and now are smart enough to drive a truck even though they never have before, has all come to one conclusion. These are not normal wolf pups. No. They are the spawn of Crypto the Superdog. Yeah, when Krypton was destroyed, Crypto managed to save a litter of 3 pups and brought them to Earth. Since he's way too busy fighting crime with Superman, he left them to 2 random wolves to take care of them, that being our main heroes. Weird, but you know what? It makes just as much sense as anything in this film. Meanwhile, Humphrey is pretty bummed out about the incident with the caribou, and then this happens. This scene goes on for over a minute, by the way. So, after that not totally pointless scene, the pups return to Amy, telling her that more diggers will be arriving the next day to dig up the Rex bones. They then tell her that they'll get their parents to help them. But instead of doing that right away, they decide to take Amy on a sightseeing tour.
So when we say jump, okay?
It looks fun!
Jump!
Me, or does part of this music sound like the watered-down version of the theme from the Polar Express? But during their adventure, they run into a pack of rogue wolves. Okay, clearly these guys don't know the meaning of the word rogue. The word rogue means an animal, like an elephant for example, that lives away from other members from its kind and develops savage or destructive behaviors that aren't usually normal for their kind. So these aren't rogue wolves, it's just a pack of normal wolves who just so happen to stumble upon the pups for dinner. So, after Amy scares off the wolves and finds that Las Vegas fountain and dances with the music, my gosh, this movie's retarded, they eventually arrive back to the golf course.
Look down there. What is that? I think it's the pups. Goodness, what did they find?
You can't tell there's a large dinosaur walking behind them from that distance? Boy, I thought my eyesight was terrible. And, as expected, everyone is in shock of Amy's appearance.
Let me organize my thoughts. According to Amy the dinosaur, we have to stop the digging or there'll be a giant T-Rex unleashed, but we need to do this in time for Amy to go back to the sacred burial ground, but it has to be timed with a ray of light so she can return back to her former existence. Did I miss anything?
Well, you forgot the fact that she's 65 million years old, but I think you covered everything else.
You raised us to be kind, caring, and always wanting to help someone in need.
And that is why we often get into situations.
Well, we're in one now, and Amy's also our friend.
Thanks for reminding us what this family stands for.
And this is precisely what I meant when I say that these wolf pups are horrible role models for any child that's watching this. So what this film is flat out stating that it is okay for you to define and disobey your parents and get yourself into dangerous scenarios, all just because they taught you to be that way in order to be good citizens of the community. You know, when Littlefoot disobeyed his grandparents, it wasn't because they taught him that way. He thought he was doing the right thing, even if it goes against their rules. Sure, he still shouldn't have disobeyed them, period, but at least his heart was in the right place, and some good did come out of it. No good has ever come from these pups defying their parents in any of the past films. The next day comes, and the wolves try to stop the diggers by sending a stampeding herd of caribou towards them. But even that isn't enough to stop them from their goal. As they dig, they eventually reach the Rex bones, and then this stupid thing happens.
Well, maybe having a T-Rex is not all bad.
Wait, hold on a moment. What was with the swipe effect right there? It's still the same scene going on. The only time you ever use that sort of effect is when you transition to another scene. Oh, and by the way, hello Jurassic Park reference. Seriously, you are a Tyrannosaurus Rex! Just eat the guy like you did with the lawyer! I know what many are probably thinking, but this is a kid's movie! We can't have the T-Rex eat anybody or anything. That'd be too scary or violent. Yeah, well, they never stopped Disney from having their predatory dinosaurs eat anything twice. So the Rex goes around chasing the animals and eventually destroys the wolf's new cave.
Amy, birds are your descendants, right?
Yes, but I can't fly out of here.
And is T-Rex from the bird family too?
Yes.
That Rex is not my brother.
Okay, that line was actually kind of funny. So everyone has devised a plan to distract the T-Rex until the light hits the burial ground.
Hey, Pops! Do that thing with the dust!
Let's just ignore the fact that they are running on grass and that there is no dirt for them to kick. But how is that supposed to work on an animal that's taller than a giraffe? So that is... banana!
Banana!
Anyway, they lead the Rex to that musical fountain and... Seriously, we have a Tyrannosaurus Rex dancing with a Barney-colored raptor to a pop song that I've never heard of, and they have wolves, waterfowl, and blue jays as their audience. You know, if I could rate just how bad each of the Alpha and Omega films are, here's how I would rate them. Movie number 1, meh. Movie number 2, bad. Movie number 3, really bad. Number 4, really, really bad. Number 5, insultingly bad. But as for number 6, Dino Digs, it has pretty much reached the same levels of insanity as Tentacolino and Food Fight. That's right, folks. We have just reached this level of stupid with this franchise.
This place is really twisted.
There you have it, folks. The quote of the film. Alpha and Omega, Dino Digs. This place is really twisted. The ray of light eventually appears, and the chase continues. Amy somehow manages to trip the 7-ton carnivore into the light, and the pups say goodbye to their new friend.
Goodbye, Amy.
We'll miss you, Amy.
We love you, Amy. Forever.
You know, normally I don't like to jump to conclusions or make assumptions, but after watching this film and learning about the others, I think I may have just made a realization. This franchise that started out with a Romeo and Juliet-esque tale about these wolves from different sides is now trying to become My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. I mean, stop and think about it. The characters that want to help everyone in need and learn certain morals in the end, even though they're done very terribly here. Heck, even Amy's body structure and her color scheme is very uncanny to that of Spike. So basically, these people have so little ideas that they are basically taking ideas from a far better and more successful franchise. Then again, it's just an assumption. So after Amy and the Rex are gone, the caribou fill in the holes, even though their antlers aren't that strong, and the Daggers return and have learned a lesson of their own.
Now, we will never disturb nature again.
And so, the wolves decide to move back to their old home. And that was Alpha and Omega Dino Digs, considered by many as the worst of the franchise. And I certainly have to agree. Clocking in at only about 47 minutes, this feels less like an actual film and more like someone's fanfiction. Actually, I take that back. I've read fanfictions with more engaging stories than this. The first film may not be a masterpiece, but at least it's harmless. However, I still wouldn't recommend it since there are better options. Want to show your kids a movie with dogs or wolves? Show them Balto. Want to show them a Romeo and Juliet story? Show them The Lion King 2 Simba's Pride. But considering that this film received negative reviews, it makes me wonder, why on earth did this film receive so many awful sequels that keep getting worse and worse?
Money!
That may be the case, but that's still not a good enough reason. It's clear that the people at Splash Entertainment and Lionsgate just don't care. They just keep on making these films no matter how bad or stupid they get. And don't you dare give me the excuse of, oh, but it's just a kid's movie, what do you expect? Expect? What do I expect? I expect better than this, that's what! I highly believe that children should not watch or be exposed to something this stupid. Saying that it is bad just because it's a kid's film or show is never an excuse. I mean, say what you want about My Little Pony Friendship's Magic. While yes, it is demographic towards a young audience, but it has one thing that the Alpha and Omega franchise does not have. That is actual effort and talent. The show has decent animation, a unique story, and a huge vast of characters that are surprisingly likable and at times even relatable. Same thing can be said with other cartoons like Gravity Falls, Over the Garden Wall, or Star vs. the Forces of Evil. All these shows have heart, intelligence, and really good quality to the point where anyone of any age can enjoy them. The Alpha and Omega films have no excuse to be this unoriginal, this lazy, and in terms of Dino digs, this level of ludicrous. They are right up there with Michael Bay's Transformers, Ice Age, and Alvin and the Chipmunks as the biggest and worst cash cows in the history of media. Now, if you all excuse me, I think I'm gonna go and, watch something that's actually worth my time, and that is made by people that actually know what the heck they are doing. This is CK Primeval 07, signing out. See y'all later.
Beware, beware, be skeptical. The smile, so played it gold. Deceit so natural, but a wolf in cheap clothing is more than a warning. Now let's not get overzealous here. If I could kill you, I would. I'm frowned upon in all 50 states. Having said that,